I used to know people that owned trucking companies that paid $300,000 wire transfer to have the cargo taken off the ship into the trucks. Then they would show up with cash envelopes to the workers to actually get it taken off. If you didn't do that, somehow it would just not get taken off in time. Might have to then go into customs, so it's the world we live in. People shake down all the time. Okay, let's take a break. Let's come back at 8 o'clock.
So imagine countries that don't have this sort of a regulation.
It's with how many bullets do you have?
Have you been to Rio?
Okay.
No,
Never been to Rio?
no. I was invited to a wedding down there this summer. I might
Have you
go.
ever seen a bird's eye view of the mountains?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Oh, wait a minute. You're missing a section of the mountains that's probably not on the postcard. That's the favelas. You know what a favela is? The slums that encroaches all around the mountains,
Yeah,
right
yeah.
next to massive buildings and beautiful homes.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
When I was trying to sell,
What I'm trying to say is the concept where the developers are required to provide affordable housing doesn't exist in countries in Brazil, in Venezuela, in Colombia, because nobody cares.
yeah,
They build whatever they want. They don't give anything back to the community.
Yeah.
And then it's up for the community to find their affordable housing.
Yeah.
So what choice they have, they take over. They just start sprawling little favelas, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like the slums, and by the time you realize it, I mean,
it's like India. The people, it's amazing some of those things.
yeah, and the people that build, they still need the low-income people to do work for them.
Yeah.
So they have to live with it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get you through a process so you can, get your paycheck and projects approved and get a bonus and make capital gains.
Did you get the book? You forgot? I knew you were gonna
No, I actually, because this morning I went to South Beach and spent the whole day in South Beach, and I thought I was gonna be able to make it, and then on my way back,
Forgot.
I haven't even eaten, bro.
It's okay.
No, but my
I'll
house is-
catch up with you sometime.
my house is so close by.
Close by?
Yeah, 5 minutes. Anyway, nice time.
Thanks.
The little store closes at 8 o'clock, right?
I think so, 8 or 8:30.
Yeah, I wasn't sure which one. I wanted to make sure if people wanted to get a drink, they had the time.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Oh God, it's cool out here. I spoke to your two other classmates that are sitting behind you. They both come from downtown Fort Lauderdale, so we will meet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to driving. I moved down there this past summer, so I'm used to going all over the place.
When I went to law school, 2 of the 3 years I lived in Boca Raton, and I went to Coral Gables every day. My second year, I actually lived in Kendall for a little bit.
I bought a house down there, so that's why I ended up
Okay.
moving down there. And I like the suburbs, but I'm from Michigan. It's very different, like up there versus down here, you know, so.
On my bucket list, it's to go to Mackinac Island.
Oh, yeah.
I've never been there.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty. It's nice.
I want to get there.
I used to go every summer when I was younger. Very beautiful up there in the Upper Peninsula and everything.
Yeah, I used to have, one of my board of directors was from Traverse City.
Oh, that's another beautiful little town.
He had a lot of money.
Yeah, it's the wintertime, not so
No.
much, but the summertime of Michigan, I do miss that. So I went to my first public hearing.
Where?
Yesterday. Well, in my neighborhood, there's a golf course.
And then trying to convert it to home
Well,
development?
there's a covenant on it for 99 years and started in 1967. So the new, or the landowner now, the golf course hasn't been used since
Right.
2002 when one of the hurricanes went through. So now they're trying to build on it. And I find it so, I was like, I have to go to this hearing because it's like what we're learning about, what you're telling us. So I went to it. It was, we had to be there at 10. And I'm on the neighbor's side, but I'm kind of looking at the other end, like, what is this developer trying to do while the neighbors are all set?
Well, actually, that leads right into the next chapter, by the way.
Yeah, I was reading that today, and I was like, so this is the covenant and everything like that, but,
And I've done golf course reconversions. Williams Island used to have one out by the California Club on Ives Dairy.
Yep.
We worked with the neighbors, we converted it. Because instead of building legally right up to here, I pulled it back and I kept green belts. Yes, they'd rather have a golf course, but we
right.
let it go overgrown the grass, put a fence.
See, I feel like this developer, he's not working with the neighbor, I mean, I just moved into the neighborhood, so I kind of jumped on board right away.
Does it affect your view?
No, it won't affect my view at all. So I'm kind of curious to, we didn't get to hear the developer side because the meeting ran so long. We were there at 10 and then it was 5 o'clock and we were just getting in. So they actually extended it to March 8th. So he's all day and never got to a decision, but
Who had the meeting, the government?
yeah, it was right on First Street. The commissioners, Miami commissioners. So, but I mean, I feel like they're gonna go towards the neighbor's side because of the covenant that's in place.
Well, covenants are legal documents that run with the land.
Right.
So you gotta get somehow
So once
around
they
it.
get past that, they still have to they deal with the zoning and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. So it's still like another.
Yeah.
So the commissioners are there, like, even if we let this go, it's still.
Well, a lot of times the covenant might be able to get released by the commission. I don't know what the covenant says.
Just that it has to remain a golf course or a country club for 99 years.
But does the Board of County Commissioners have the ability to undo that?
Yeah, I guess, I mean.
See, you gotta know who put the
I don't
covenant
know.
there.
There was a lawyer there and he was trying to explain things and everything, you know, and I was trying to follow everything that was going on. But I never got to hear the other side, and, you know.
Okay.
Some people say it's gonna, everyone says it's gonna cause more traffic and
Yeah, they always say
bring
that.
down the property value. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what he's talking about. And then there are a couple neighbors who were for it. I think prior to me moving into the neighborhood, I researched it a little bit, there was, they were trying to pay off the neighbors.
Yeah.
So the developer was trying to pay each neighbor $50,000 because even if they pass this part, they still have to have 75% approval by the neighbors to build something other than a golf course.
Yeah.
Or country club there. So they were trying to pay off the neighbors, and obviously the neighbors like their view of green grassland, so. But I'm sure they had plans to build a park and make it look nice and. So
Well, there is a
but no one wants to
win-win.
hear it.
People
No
get
one's-
together.
And then they have a whole website,
Mhm.
there's things that go into people's yards, we're all signed a petition. Email the commissioner, there's like 400 and some emails that were sent when I was checking that day, and it's kinda crazy.
I don't wanna sound clairvoyant,
Mhm.
but I've been to this rodeo 100 times.
Yeah, I can tell
People
what
go
you're
through the
saying.
process, they have to go through the war.
Yeah.
It's like when a married couple want to get a divorce.
Mhm.
Sometimes the bitterness is so bad, they'd rather waste $1 million on lawyers
Yeah.
than say, sweetheart, I'm sorry, but I found someone else. I didn't mean to, but I fell in love. We can fight each other and give $1 million to the lawyer, or would you rather have another $500,000 for you? But
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's hard to get people to get over that
Oh,
anger.
yeah, I mean, they're all up there giving their testimonies.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I didn't want to speak because I was new, I just wanted to see what's going on. I more went for the benefit of this class to see how it works out, and it's pretty cool to see.
Well, you could use that for your case study.
Well, I was thinking that, so I kind of wanted to go and see how they would play out, and, I mean, I want to see, I don't know how, is there a way for me to look at the plans of the developer? Is that public knowledge anywhere?
Well, his plans aren't public knowledge unless
Okay.
he's filed them officially.
Okay,
But I assume if he's a good developer, he's made them available, because what he's trying to show is, I'm not gonna put, like I said, a building right next to your building. I'm gonna put them in the middle of the fairway, but then there'll be a park.
oh, yeah, I mean,
There'll be something nice.
Uh-huh.
There'll be open space, a linear trail.
Yeah, because some of the people who were for it, the 2 or 3 neighbors that were saying that they wanted to have the park, somewhere to walk their dogs, somewhere to take their
Yeah.
kids and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, there's a park involved.
There's no way a developer can get people to agree to remove the covenant unless they show what it could look like in the end.
Mhm.
So the developers had to play his hand.
Yeah.
So you may not legally be able to get it unless you gave it to the government, once the government has its public record, but he should have given it to the president of the homeowners association.
Well, there is no homeowners association.
Why
There's
not?
one.
You don't have one?
Mm.
What golf course is this?
Calusa?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this
I love the neighborhood, I mean, I moved to the
This has
neighborhood.
been going on for a while, I think, this thing.
It was, because I had researched it prior to us buying the house, and then I was like, oh, it's over. I had read that, you know, I didn't read far enough, I flipped the page to see that it was still ongoing. But, so I thought it had been taken care of, and then as soon as I moved to the neighborhood, I get a little thing in my mailbox, or, you know, sign up, help save Calusa. But yeah, the owners are, McCarty, so they already have a lot of money.
They
So
have all the money in the
so
world.
the neighbors are like, they don't need more money, why ruin our
They
neighborhood?
have all the money in the world, they can do what
Yeah.
they want.
I mean, they wanted to pay the neighbors $50,000 just to say yes.
Oh.
You gotta press that button right there on the wall. There you go.
I forgot I'm at a private school, not at a public school. You have buttons for this.
Only reason I know because I saw the guy do it the other night. On my Tuesday class.
Sorry, I don't understand. He ordered a bagel and the lady over there was taking a long time to process it.
I think she was upset that you came over there.
She's all close up.
The other day, when was it? Tuesday, I went there right around 8 o'clock. And I was on the line, standing on the line, there was like 2 people in front of me standing on the line. And then as soon as those 2 people passed, I said, can I get a coffee? And she goes, oh no, just take it, just take it.
Register's closed.
It's closed, just take it.
Did you back up? I mean, I don't see any, is there?
It looks that way, but I'm not sure.
Isn't there devil?
I don't see any stuff.
How much usually it cost a wetland analysis or determination?
Can't answer that,
It depends.
because this, it all depends. This is, wetlands here, and clearly, this is going to, be substantially different than a little thing. The syllabus talks about a case called Graham versus estuary properties. I didn't send it to you.
You didn't?
No, did not.
Okay.
All you need to know is what's on the board right here. This is back on the day, this case is from 1981. This is back on the day when there was actually land that was still not destroyed yet, over in Lee County, a little bit north of Naples. So west coast, so the water's on the west. Here's the bay. Red mangroves, 2,800 acres. Black mangroves, 1,800. Partially dry, 1,374 acres. Dry, non-wetlands, 52. Okay? What the developer wanted to do the developer was not going to fill these wetlands. I mean, even I would say red wetlands, they're the more pristine, right on the bay. This is really, there's not much. These are the mangroves have these roots. It looks like, if you ever see a tree that got washed out or got from a hurricane, see the exposed roots? Mangroves, by definition, have exposed roots. They cause stabilization for the shoreline, and then fish eat on it. You need it for the ecosystem. So the developer's being reasonable. Saying, look, 2,800 acres, I won't touch it. I'm going to give you a conservation easement. Then he says, but I want to fill, I want to go into the black mangroves, I want to rip them out, and I want to take the fill from here that I rip out, and I want to put it here on the partial dry so it becomes a little bit firmer. And then in its place, I'll create like a internal, channel, a water body. I need the fill. And then I can develop here and here. So he's going to preserve this, mess this up, fill here and here. The developer...
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What deems it red or black?
This is more prestigious.
Okay.
And then black, then white, and then...
I mean, is that industry?
Yeah, because I think so, and that's why these are the ones closer to the shoreline.
Gotcha.
I'm not an expert, but I think that's the case. So overall, the developer owns, legal title, 6,500 acres. He wants to build 26,500 dwelling units, which eventually will be that many people. He wants to build a city. Okay? The government says you can build that many dwelling units. Less than half. Government says, can't touch this, can't touch that. Still get this mitigation here. We don't care what you do here. He sues. Government says, I mean, the homeowner says, remember I said the Fifth Amendment? He says, you've taken my property. Florida Supreme Court. So when it says Florida Supreme Court, you know it's the highest in Florida. 1981, many years ago. Still good law today. And it says right here, the complaint. The denial of my application constitutes a taking of my property for public use without compensation in violation of the U.S. and Florida constitutions. That's what the lawsuit's about. You've taken my property, saying I can't do it because the public's going to get the benefit. Court says the following. Ready? These are words you don't want to hear. Ready? The court's saying, we're going to balance the interest. You don't want to be in a courtroom when they're balancing the interest because you know what's going to happen. It's like, get a gun, put 1 bullet, 2 bullets, 3 bullets in, spin it around.
Yeah.
It's worse than Russian, it's 50-50. You're either going to win or lose. I'm not playing that game. I'm not going to play the game with 1 bullet in the chamber. Let it on 3. The government says, look, we don't believe your mitigation of doing this channel is going to work because you haven't done the following. You've not put in the record sufficient, competent, substantial evidence. If you're going to do something, remember I said you have to prove that you
didn't do the environmental.
He didn't do enough. Maybe he did, but they're saying we don't think he did. But this is what you need to know from this. Ready? I'm going to read this very slow. There is no set formula. Remember, 55 miles an hour is legal. 56 is not. That's a statute, very clear. I either have a bag of cocaine or it's baking powder. It's one or the other. There's no in between. Statutes are clear. The court says the following. There is no set formula for determining when the valid exercise of police power stops and an impermissible encroachment on private property rights begin. It's a balancing test. Government cannot take your property without compensation, but government can regulate it. I think I did in this class the cell phone analogy. They can't take it. They can regulate it, but they can't regulate to a point of you not turning it on. But they can say on an FAA plane you can't. I think you'll get that. So when you start hearing, oh, they're going to balance, there's no set formula, it doesn't look good for the developer. Then they go on, and this is, I hate this case, because this is the case that puts the environment before concrete. Protecting environmentally sensitive areas and pollution prevention are legitimate concerns within police power. Doesn't sound good for the developer, does it? Right. See, police power, we're not taking, we're doing police power stuff. Then they quote this case from Wisconsin, Just versus Marionette County. Remember I said each state has its own rules. This is a major first case in Florida, this magnitude. So Florida doesn't know what rules to do. So they went to Wisconsin, they found this great case and they applied it. This is what they said. We agree with the Wisconsin court. So when the Florida Supreme Court says, we agree with the Wisconsin court, that means that law is now here. Ready? An owner of land has no absolute and unlimited right to change the essential nature and natural character of the land for which it was in its natural state, if it's going to cause injury, which is a nuisance to others. You might own this. Just because you own it doesn't mean you have the right to F with it. Yeah, but I borrowed money from banks thinking I'm going to get this many dwelling units. I'm going to get less than half.
Oh. Is he stupid or something? I mean, it's like 4,600 square feet, acres of mangroves.
Well, you have to realize this was
Oh, look.
81.
Oh.
This is all new to us. We're still trying to figure out what the rules are. We had a good old boy system of, hey, just go fill, you know? And then it's the Army Corps of Engineers and others started getting really more involved with environmental protection. You have to realize, where I'm standing today used to be wet Everglades. All those canals that we created, a thing called Florida, the Army Corps dredged it to create land. So we used to destroy the environment until we stopped destroying the environment. Remember, 1955, 1956, Brown versus education, and then it applied. Things change. 81, you can't mess with nature. 71, 61, you probably could have, because they were doing it all over the place. So what you need to know, just because you own it, doesn't mean you can fill it.
How does the process of mitigation works if you have a piece of land that is considered environmental?
Well, we're going to get to that a little bit on the next case, and there could be a whole course on that, on mitigation. Sometimes it's a 1-for-1 ratio. For every acre you screw up, you got to put back one. Sometimes it's 2-to-1, 3-to-1. Government says for every acre you impact, you got to put back 4. Sometimes they let you do it on a mitigation bank elsewhere. Okay? But what you need to know, remember, I don't know if I told you this, my dad was a developer. He told me early on he does nothing, except gets everyone else to do their job the best they can. So at this point, if you're a vice president acquisitions development for a major company, you better be calling a land use lawyer, an environmental attorney, and a coastal engineer, wetlands type engineer to figure this stuff out. Where the lines are, what can be mitigated, what can be filled, what the deal is. And then what happens? You got to get the Army Corps of Engineers, Florida Department of EPA to come and do a jurisdictional determination. Can we screw up the land this side? Or can we go all the way to here? Or are they going to say, no, stay here? Where's the determination? So the point of it is, the reason for giving this case is to show you, you can't mess with Mother Nature if it's there, just because you own it. And government has not taken your property. Now, what I would do, if I was a lawyer, but I would lose, I would say, look, each type is its own thing. You haven't taken this, you haven't taken this, but you've taken this. We're going to get a little bit later on in the Penn Central case, where the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to look at every little strand and say, well, that was taken, but that wasn't. We're going to look at the total picture. We're going to balance, that's what they say, and we're going to let you get enough developed, and that's it. Because we think it's the right thing. We're not going to look at each little thing. It's not a take it. It's an uphill battle to take money from the government. It's actually getting a little bit better. We're going to get to that soon with the Coons case, which you didn't need to read, but I'll just work you through it. But I want to show you Graham versus estuary properties for the foundational monument in your head that if you own it, you can't fill it without a permit, and you can't sue. And you know what? You better be doing your land use pro forma market study on this number and not that. Because if you went ahead and you look at the land you own, let's assume you work with a broker, a real estate broker. No disrespect, I happen to be one. But they don't know anything. You work with a real estate broker and an architect. And they say, oh, you're allowed 4 units an acre. You own this many acres, roughly 4 times that is this. Oh, good. And you underwrite that, you borrow based on that, and you end up getting, only, a lot less. So this stuff's important. Remember what I said earlier on page 1 and 2? I'm here to help you spot the issues. So, when we skip ahead to that handout of the 55 questions, and I go to question 54. You may not have it. I'll read it. Ready? Mr. Concrete wants to build a mixed-use development on the western edge of the city of Weston. He's walking on the site one day, and he ruined a good pair of Gucci loafers since the ground was wet. But it has not rained in weeks. He wants to have many different uses in the mixed-use development and take full advantage of the view of the Everglades. Find a location that works and outlines the steps it will take to get approval by the city of Weston. Spot the issues. Even though he's doing smart growth, mixed-use development, I gave you that handout on the good stuff, he's walking in the wetlands. That should be going off in your head. You shouldn't be saying, oh, he just ruined an $800 pair of shoes. You should be saying, ding, 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 wetlands. And then it says, this is a trick question. Find a location that works and outline the steps he has to take to get approved by the city of Weston. You should be saying, that's the least of his problems, the city of Weston. He's got to deal with the federal government, Army Corps of Engineers, Federal Fish and Wildlife, the state of Florida Environmental Protection, and Broward County Department of Resource Environmental, before you get to Weston on where the building permit site plan goes. So question 54 is for you to now read and realize this isn't about shoes. Okay, it's about wetlands and government jurisdiction. And what you need to know is that you need to do usually an environmental assessment of what you have out there. Now, if you're buying a Winn-Dixie shopping center that's been closed, like the case we're going to do there, you don't need to worry about environmental stuff, but you got to worry about environmental phase 1 audit for contamination issues. Okay, let's move on to the Supreme Court case. I'm going to pass this around. I want it back. If you know Orlando, it's where the 417 and the 408 meet. 2 major roads not far from UCF. Actually, I'm not going to hand it. I'm just going to show it to you. Ready? This is the property we're talking about.
Pretty busy intersection, isn't it?
Major intersection, but this happens to be the last quadrant that's yet developed. Now, all of you need to do the following in your mind. This has been cleared out. This has some species on it, the canopies. That's where some of the wet stuff is. This has wetlands on it too. Mr. Coons died. I'm going to give you the facts. This case, U.S. Supreme Court talks a lot about Nolan and Dolan, which we'll get to later. This took it to the next level. This case was decided 5-4. When Justice Scalia was alive, most of our cases were decided 5-4. Okay?
What do you mean 5-4?
9 people on the Supreme Court.
Oh, I see, 5.
5 were in favor. So we're divided as a nation. Okay? Do you realize when President Trump puts the new Supreme Court justice there, it'll be a battle. That person will be pro-life, anti-abortion. But now we're still back to the 5-4, still in favor of abortion. When Donald Trump gets his second nomination, it's a whole different world. We are in a divided world. The Supreme Court is the ultimate, because these 9 people are making decisions that affect people's lives.
Every president has a right to have 2?
No. The good news, well, I can't say the good news because we're supposed to be political. As a good Republican, I call it good news. there's some people in the Supreme Court in their 80s.
Yeah, I was.
They're not going to be around much longer.
Okay.
But their attitude is, I'm taking my vitamins every day just to live until we get to 2020 because I'm not going to give President Trump another choice. That's how divided we are. I read the New York Times every day and I read the Wall Street Journal every day. The only thing they agree on is the date.
Who was it? Is it Scalia that died just recently?
Here.
Yeah.
He was a conservative. Okay, let's talk about Coons. Or Coons.
I had it right here.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Coons owns 14.9 acres. I showed it to you. He wants to develop 3.7 of that. He's going to give 11.2 in a conservation easement to either the county or the state of Florida forever. Not touch it. Goes to get his permit. Government has a different idea. This is what the government says. The government says, tell you what, you got the 14.9, how about we let you develop not 3.7, how about we let you develop 1 acre? And how about you put then 13.9 in the conservation? Or, if you don't like this plan A, tell you what, we'll let you do your plan B. But then we want you to go about 5 miles down the road and spend a whole bunch of money fixing a whole bunch of wetlands down over there. And then you make them better, we'll let you do what you wanted. Or you can develop 1 acre. He's a good old boy. He didn't take my class, but you know what? He thinks this stinks. He spot the issue. He sues.
Sounds like the good old shakedown you were talking about.
Yeah, well, governments was shaken down. And, well, this is the difference. There was a case called Nolan. There was a case called Dolan, where the Supreme Court said the following. In the Nolan case, I have a house in California on the ocean. My house is a little bungalow. I want to knock it down, I want to make it a little wider. The government says, yeah, but if you make it really wide, people on the road are not going to be able to see the ocean anymore. It's going to create a physical barrier, mental barrier, psychological barrier. But we'll let you do that if you give us an easement on the beach to connect 2 different parks. The Supreme Court said, wait a minute, this was the Nolan case. If you pass a law trying to create view sheds from the road so people can see the beach, but you'll only let this guy fill up that view shed if he gives you an easement on the sand, what you're taking from him doesn't relate back to the benefit in the first place. Because people already on the beach don't need to see the water that's on it. Does everyone get the nuance? But if it's only when you're on the road. So the court said, you can't take this man's property without a rational nexus. That's the ding, 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 ding rational nexus. There's no rational nexus between this law to create views from the road and taking man's land on the sand. No rational nexus. That's Nolan. A couple of years go by, Dolan. Guy wants to expand his hardware. Government says, yeah, you can expand your hardware store, but we want you to do a bike path and give an easement for this park all over here of this big magnitude. And the government says, wait a minute, the guy wants to expand his hardware store. I can understand a bike path a little bit, because people might want to bike there, but you're not gonna ride a bike to get a, you know, a chainsaw, or you're gonna drive a car. But maybe there's a straight face. But you don't need to own the bike path government. If he really wanted to have it, he could still put it on his own property, he owns it. And why does he need this big dedication for the park, this big thing you want, for just a little expansion? So the government says, if you're gonna reach into someone's pocket, it has to be roughly proportionate. You know, you can't make somebody make 6 lanes of 995 because they want to make another classroom here. No, it makes no sense. So the law was, you can't take someone's property unless it meets the rational nexus rough proportionality test. We go about that for 10 years, 15 years. We understand the law. He comes along. Government's not taking the property. Government's basically shaking down for money. Because they're saying, look, we'll give you your permit if you do money expenditures down the road, or you don't need to spend the money, but then you can't build as much. It's a shakedown. Supreme Court says, you know what? Government's just gone too far. We don't think it works anymore. And yes, for the first time, government went too far and shaking someone down or making them spend money off-site, even though you haven't taken their property. It's the same thing as like taking the cell phone but saying, I'm not going to take it, you just can't turn it on. Same concept. So what you need to know as a developer is, yes, sometimes government can go too far. And obviously when this case came out in 2013, 3.5 years ago, local government hated it. I don't drink, but if I did, I would have been drinking. You know, this was good news. Okay? But you want to know what? If Donald Trump and Mike Pence die in the next 48 hours, and then Paul Ryan is now the president, and he's a closet liberal, and he puts in a liberal person who's pro-government, and then these other people stay on, you can have a whole other Supreme Court that has a whole different framework of, is government good or is government bad? See, I personally believe government should do two things only. Build roads, drop bombs. I'm conservative. Other people think the federal government is the answer to every social ill in the world. And we should all be in welfare and just take government handouts. One's not right, one's not wrong. It's just how you look at the world. And whoever is in charge gets to put these people in. So this pendulum swings. The goal for you is to work with local government. And I think a lot of the local governments had this as a wake-up call. My dad used to cheat on his income taxes. Very aggressive write-offs, very aggressive positions. The marginal tax rate used to be 90%, but then no one paid it because of tax shelters. So him and his development partners were very aggressive. And then all of a sudden, someone named Leona Helmsley, a billionaire, went to jail for tax fraud on a minor stupid things. She's doing an extension on her Greenwich country house for like $1 million. She's a billionaire, and she writes off $1 million of personal stuff as a business expense. It was a minor thing. They put her in jail for 18 months, just like they put Martha Stewart in jail. I tell the story because I made my dad say, wow, if they're going to put her in jail, they're going to crucify me. I'm not, you know. I think this was the wake-up call to government. Because to say to someone, yeah, I see what you want. Now look, the fact that you're saying that they can do this, you're basically saying, it's not that bad on the property, but we want to shake you down to fix this. And if you don't fix this, you can only do a little bit. That was a shakedown. So what you need to know is there's good case law on your side to hopefully get government to play a little bit fair. Okay, I didn't send you this. This just happened last week. Asheville, North Carolina, I've lived in now for 25 years. Locals are getting upset with so many hotels being built downtown. It's becoming so touristy.
You say you live there?
I have summer home there, yeah.
Oh, okay. Being there is nice.
Yeah. My wife will go up next week for a couple of weeks. We go back and forth. Asheville is on every top 10 list there is. Best place to live, best place to retire, best food, best this. And everyone's going there now. So they're building hotels and hotels and hotels everywhere. The locals are saying, enough of these hotels. We don't want them anymore. A developer files for another hotel. Right next to another hotel, right next to another hotel. In a part of town that would be kind of like 4 blocks from the core. So it's like beat up now. It's not even nice, so it's not like it's taken over the core. But there's a mindset of we have enough hotels. Developer follows the rules. Conditional use. Remember I told you conditional use? He met all 7 conditions. He got in the record proof he met every 7 conditions. His attorney used to be the city attorney for 20 years who retired and now represents him. Last Wednesday, it was turned down 7-0 because the community doesn't want more hotels. But you can't say that. What do they say? They say the following. We're concerned about parking, traffic, and concentration of hotels. They always say that. Well, that was the first newspaper article. Next day, hotel developers going to sue. And they're basically saying, look, we got rammed. We got railroaded, whatever. We met the standards. We're going to have to go to Raleigh to a court, have a court tell you that you turned us down because you counted the votes in the audience and you only want hotels. But the zoning code says, if I meet these conditions, I can have my hotel. They met their parking, they met the height, they did everything. It was just, they didn't want that, so.
So he's gonna win that.
I think he is. But you want to know something? Let me tell you something. I used to be president and CEO of a public company, and I had a corporate credit card. It was very easy to spend corporate money. I can justify anything. It's so easy to spend someone else's money. You want to get reelected as elected official. That's all you care about. So you turn down the project for the developer. You know you're going to get sued. You know a year and a half later you'll be told you should have approved it. Yeah, so you'll waste $200,000 of taxpayers' dollars on a lawyer to defend it. But guess what? You get to say, I tried to stop that bastard developer. But it was that idiot Republicans in Raleigh that said he could have his hotel. Not me, I'm the good guy. And you get reelected. That's the real world. Excuse me. When you come back, I want to talk about the Burke-Harris Act. So I'll wait for you to stop joking.
That's
We
what
will.
you emailed us, right?
No, I didn't email. Did I email you that?
I don't know, you emailed us a couple, so.
I don't think I emailed you this one.
Okay.
I mean, I can, but it was just to give you a flavor of, I taught you as of right. Certain things are conditional use. If you meet the conditions, it almost becomes as of right. And then when the government says no for political reasons, they're going to get shut down. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about your project. Because believe it or not, next week we're at the halfway point.
That's fast.
It flies by, believe me. I need you to do something that you're interested in. You and I were talking at the break about your community, a golf course being converted to homes. I've done that before. It's how you work with the neighbors. My goal is for you to feel very comfortable with touch and feeling land use analysis stuff. How government works, how this thing does. So we got to be thinking in those terms of what you're going to do. Okay, there's something in Florida called the Burke-Harris Act. And we've started to talk a little bit about when government over-regulates, they've taken your property, and they gotta pay. The Republicans many years ago passed the Byrd-Harris Act up in Tallahassee that basically said, whenever government does anything that's too much of an impact on property rights, you can sue for money damages, you get paid. It's very nebulous what that means. So what happens many times is the following, just like in Asheville. Developer goes in for a project. It gets denied because the politicians don't have the backbone to approve it. The developer can go to court, just like they did in the UCF, Winn-Dixie. Or they can file something called the Byrd-Harris Act that basically says, we're going to go to a miniature court review. But I'm going to give you, the city, a chance to reconsider and settle me before I run to court. So it's a way to get the parties outside of the public hearing to sit in a room and say the following. I know you voted against me because you had to for political reasons, because the neighbors were screaming. If you don't fix this, I'm going to sue you for a lot of money and I'm going to get my project approved. So why don't we come up with the Byrd-Harris settlement agreement that lets me do what I want? You know what, I'll take off 2 floors of the building and I'll give a little dog walk park here for people so you can save face. So then, there's a Byrd-Harris settlement agreement that gives the developer more or less what he wanted and allows the politicians to say, I had to do it because of the lawyers. I voted against it as a public hearing, as you know, make sure you're reelected. So what you need to know is the word Byrd-Harris Act. It's another way in Florida for you to say to your lawyer, hey, remember the goal here is to spot issues and maybe to talk to your lawyer. Wait a minute. I don't want to go through, my teacher told me that the litigation in this Orlando thing was 4 years. I don't want to go through 4 years of that. Byrd, B-E-R-T, Byrd-Harris Act. So I don't want to go through 4 years of litigation like they did in UCF, the Winn-Dixie Shopping Center. I want to fix this now. Isn't there something called Byrd-Harris where you threaten major money damages to bring the city to the table? And the answer is yes. So whenever you get beat up on by government, the goal is to say there's a Byrd-Harris claim applied. And most city attorneys know the game. They don't want to pay those damages, and it's a great way to get a settlement. So it takes a 2-step approach. You have to go through the charade of a public hearing, be denied, then sue for Byrd-Harris, knowing that you could still get your money damages and bring lawsuits. I just want you to know the issue. You don't need to get the details. I sent you something today called the PZR report. Did everyone get this email? It was late afternoon. And I said to you a poor land use investigation. Even though this was done by a major private equity firm that I worked for before I got involved with this deal, you know that expression, garbage in, garbage out? You don't let your architect design, do your land use analysis? There's a company called the Planning and Zoning Resource Corporation in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, that will do a land, they call it a zoning site requirement summary, or their PZR report with a little trademark, for any property in the United States. But it's kind of like, let's assume you're having heart palpitations. I guess you could go to your family doctor. Would you rather go to a cardiologist? So they do this report. It's pretty basic. They spot some issues. They tell you what the zoning is, who owns it, the size, some setbacks. Okay? They do a little bit, but what they do, and I wanted you to see the letter at the very back. local governments are very accustomed to giving zoning letters to banks and property owners and buyers. You get a property zone this, we don't see any violations. But you want to know something? If PZR did this for Fort Lauderdale, yeah, you're allowed to go 120 feet, 12 stories. This report doesn't discuss the second page like they did discuss the second page on the Boca car dealership. This report's not going to probably find the nuance of that concept called neighborhood compatibility. We're notwithstanding the 120 feet height limitation. Another thing might make it a little bit lower. So I want you to know, in your career, you might come across the PZR report. Hopefully you can go a little bit further. Now let me tell you something.
So the PZR report is common, not just by this company, it's a
Well, this is a company that does this,
Yeah.
okay? And they do it for people who need a quick, down and dirty, and they don't want to pay Greenberg Traurig to do a full analysis. Now let me tell you something. Let's assume I'm buying 1,200 7-Elevens, convenience stores with a gas station throughout the United States in 37 states. And the closing's in 60 days. I say to myself, 1,200 stores, they've been in business for a while, probably not a big issue. If there were, they probably would have been shut down. I'm not going to ask Greenberg Traurig at Holland and Knight at $800 an hour to do a land use report on all of them. But you know what? Just having the file, I'm going to call this company up. And I'm going to say, I need in the file, make sure. And it's good for that. It's like this. When you buy a house, you do a home inspection. They're going to say, look, I think the roof's okay. I don't think there's leaks, I don't think there's termites. But you know what? If you want to know for sure, go get a professional roof and pay 7 times the price, and they'll go look at every nail and every joist and strap and everything else. This is good, but I just want to point out to you that as a land use attorney, garbage in, garbage out. Because quite frankly, all of you sitting in your office in downtown Fort Lauderdale can go on MuniCode, www.municode.com. This property happened to be in Tempe, Arizona. You could find the zoning code, you can find the thing, and you could fill in the blanks. And guess what? You could send a letter to the Tempe zoning department, and they'll respond back to you. So this is kind of like a belt, but I like belt and suspenders when I do this stuff. Okay? I just wanted you to have this so you know that it is out there. Let me do another chapter, chapter 5. Zoning restrictions control property, what you can and can't do. We're on page 30, chapter 5. I want to knock out a couple more chapters and I want to hit the staff report, then I want to go home. Page 30, chapter 5, private land use controls. We've been talking about government rules, government zoning, government comp plan, government environmental rules. Private controls can also affect land. My dad started out making his fortune in Florida by building single-family wealthy homes in Boca Raton. Arvida was the master developer. They controlled a project called Boca West. Over 1,000 acres. They built a clubhouse, they put in 4 golf courses. And they would sell to my dad pods. Basically, picture the following. This is your 1,000 acres. Here's Glades Road. Here's the turnpike. Imagine coming off Glades Road. One big loop like that. Okay? that he would sell to my dad this parcel, would sell to someone else this parcel to develop. Okay? Master developer, that's what they do. He wants to make sure my dad doesn't build carports as opposed to parking garages. Carports are at a much lower level. He wants to make sure there's no RVs allowed in the parking thing. So a private developer sells land with deed restrictions. He wants to make sure that I have the homes earth tone colors and don't have pink homes, right? Private restrictions, they're enforceable. They get recorded against the public records. Restrictive covenants, we were talking about a golf course that was built in order to sell the homes around it, and the developer put a 99-year deed restriction on the land not to develop the golf course. It happens everywhere, but now they're trying to undo them everywhere. But what you need to know, private restrictions, if they're properly prepared and recorded, have just as much impact on that land as a zoning thing. So what you need to do, on your little checklist we were talking about that you need to develop, you got to get a good land use lawyer to help you with the land use investigation. They're going to have a partner down the hall in the real estate department who can do a title search or go to a title company. Because you want to find what documents are recorded against the land that have this. Now, many times there may not be a full set of there may not be a full set of restrictive covenants prepared by a lawyer that's clear. Sometimes it could be a deed going back 40 years. Granddaddy owns the farm. Granddaddy sells half the farm to the neighbor and says the following: no double wide trailers allowed, only single family homes. Then that gets sold again and again and again. Now the area is really populated. You want to do 3-story multifamily. The code, zoning code allows it, but there's a deed restriction going back 40 years. Only single family homes allowed. And if you just closed on that piece of property and didn't read that deed restriction, and your pro forma and market study are based on a 3-story garden apartment, and you can't build it now, no matter what the zoning code says. So your checklist has to be, I want a major law firm to be responsible for the title commitment, or a major title company like Chicago Title, whoever, to tell me what's there. And if they miss the deed, and they don't see that in the chain of title, and they don't report it, they're on the hook financially.
What is the insurance that a major one? I mean, I know maybe there are limits for certain business or transactions, but what are like the good let's say for $1 million,
well, no, this is what normally happens. When I buy a $50 million office building, I'm getting title insurance that someone tells me that the seller owns it. And if it turns out the seller didn't own it and sold it to me, now the real seller comes along and says, hey, it's mine, you don't have it, I'm out. I get my $50 million back. Okay? But if there's a deed restriction that the title company forgot to list as an exception, and I'm damaged for $10 million worth, let's say, even though it's a $50 million deal, I can only claim the $10 million worth of damage. What you need to know is this. My goal is to make all of you executives, where you do nothing but pull strings for other people to do their job. Land use attorneys do what they do. Title companies, real estate attorneys do what they do. Environmental consultants do what they do. Okay? You got to know what to do. So that's the key thing here. Okay? We're not going to spend much time on the Shelley Kramer case, but governments will not enforce restrictive covenants that are against public policy. So you can't discriminate no matter what the deed restriction says. You go to the case on page 34. deed restriction on the number of units allowed, because it was in the chain of title. I want you to see this word on page 35. You see the section where it's bolded, where it says the word held? And they talk about the three things, but count down line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you see in quotes, run with the land? That's a term of art. When you put restrictive covenants on a piece of property, they quote unquote run with the land. So even if the property gets sold 20 times, and now George Perez is finally building a condo on the land, but it's next to the Stranahan house, and 100 years ago, when the owner next to the Stranahan house sold the land to Mrs. Stranahan to do his little house, and said, "Thou shalt only have single-family homes within this." Well, George's lawyer should have found that, even though it's 100 years old, because it still runs with the land. Okay? So you need to be making sure you deal with good title people at that point. Page 40. I want to talk about this a little bit because it's how I've made a lot of money for my partners. How are covenants enforced? And then go down to the second paragraph where it talks about a well-written covenant. And then it says about 5 lines down, you see where it says, today, covenants can be changed by less than 100% agreement. Highlight that. And then highlight on that same line, sunset provision. I want to talk about both of those concepts. I spent 4 years of my life trying to buy every piece of property in Sunny Isles for the Trump Group. So was the Desert Group, so was Related, so was W. They're all battling. We're buying up these ma-pa hotels. And the condominium documents. We're trying to terminate the condominium. I want to get rid of the old condo. I ended up buying an old 100-room motel on the ocean. It was like a Days Inn. It was crap. But they turned it into a condo so people in Hialeah who knew one another could have a place to go to on the weekend for weekend getaway. And for 25 years, all these families from Hialeah would leave Hialeah and go to this place on Sunny Isles. They would have the family, events there, religious ceremonies. It was their life for 25 years. They didn't really maintain it much because it's a weekend getaway, It failed the 40-year recertification. It was derelict. I owned, for the Trump Group, 80 of the 100. I couldn't get the last 20. We ended up in litigation. I was able to cram them down eventually. Because the condominium documents, I wanted to terminate the old condo, to buy one out and put up a tower. Eventually we did. Given the Republicans in Tallahassee, they finally helped us out. We no longer need 100% vote to terminate. Because you can't get 100% of people. There's always one guy who will hold out. So the people in Tallahassee have passed a rule that basically said, I think you can now do it with 80%, unless more than 10% object. But the goal is, there's no more land left in Florida. So how do you get the land? The Desert Group and others are very good at doing that. The Trump Group's very good with it. They got to the next tower there where they bought out 500 different units of timeshares. And each unit has 50 weeks. You have to pay a premium. I did a condo in Boca Raton on the ocean. I got 30 people to sell me their unit because they couldn't pass the 40-year recertification. But what you need to know is if a condominium document says 100% of the people are required, you might have to go with that unless there's statutory relief. But what the key takeaway here is, don't come to me if I'm your boss and say, guess what? I went to Greenberg Charity. I hired their best land use lawyer. I know everything there is about the zoning. Because I'm gonna say to you, gee, did you hire our partner on the next floor in the real estate department? Do you know everything about the private restrictions? Have you done a full title search? Have you looked at it from a private thing? They both control. Okay, everyone get that? Can't overstate the importance of that. Zoning, chapter 6. Look at the first sentence on page 45. The zoning ordinance is the bread and butter of modern planning practice. Go to page 46, below the picture. You have been asked to prepare a staff report. Well, no, I didn't ask you to prepare one, but I asked you to print pages 1 through 13 of one out so we can read it. Any deal that you're involved with, if you're buying someone else's approvals, go get the staff report. If you're trying to get new approvals, work with staff to get it. Okay, I want you just to see this case. This is the Roe v. Wade, this is the Brown versus Board of Education of zoning, Euclid case. This is the landmark case. If you could ask any land use lawyer, what is the case, the granddaddy case, this is it. Euclid. Look where it says held, midway down. First line. Zoning is a valid government exercise of police power. 3 lines down. To protect the public health, safety, welfare. This is 1926. 90 years ago. Let me tell you how things have changed. The Euclid case was based on the following facts. Single-family homeowners should not be inconvenienced by having to see multifamily housing. Zoning was based on separation. Separate single-family, multifamily, commercial, retail, industrial. So zoning was basically about push uses away. That was the genesis of zoning for the last 90 years. I gave you on day 1 the American Planning Association Smart Growth Principles. We've started to realize that we've taken zoning too far with separation. Because we now live in Kendall, we now live in Weston, or we live in Wellington, and what do? We drive to West Palm, Miami, or Fort Lauderdale in a car every day for an hour. We drive back, we cause pollution, we cause urban sprawl. So now the theory for you to get your project approved is mixed-use development. You might like suburban sprawl. I love it. But you know what? The reason I'm having you do a planning book is the people who are going to approve your project are going to say, gee, I like compact development. I like transit-oriented development. I like smart growth. I like mixed-use community. Show me your public realm. So the point of it is, if you care about making money, start putting the lipstick on the pig with all this public realm, foo-foo design that the planners want. Because you want to get a positive staff report. Okay? Don't say, no, I'm going to go back to Euclid and separate it. Okay? And I'm serious. Because I teach planners, and the stuff that they soak up and love is mixed-use development. They love the concept that no one has even a Prius anymore. Everyone can hop on Tri-Rail. And if you say to them, I designed a project with a 3-car garage, and each garage is wide enough so we can put 3 big Cadillac Escalades in there, they're going to find some reason to turn you down, because that goes against their grain. You got to realize it's a war on so many levels. Okay, go to page 49. 49 at the bottom, second to last line on the bottom of 49. List of permitted uses. Your property zone B1 or C1. Many times there'll be a laundry list of 20, 30 lists that you can have. That's very common how zoning gets done. No disrespect to anyone who has a tattoo, that's a personal choice. But many times the permitted uses exclude tattoo parlors. Because even though it's becoming more common today, there's still that connotation of tattoos. It doesn't, Starbucks does not want to be next to a tattoo parlor, and most governments want a Starbucks. Okay? So there's a list that's permitted. There'll be something that says dry cleaners are permitted, parentheses, but no on-site cleaning allowed. You can do the drop-off there, as many of you probably do at your dry cleaner, but they're not doing the actual dry cleaning there next to the Publix where you live, because the stuff's toxic. They do it in the industrial area. So you've got to go to the list of permitted uses. I want you to see two words on the page 50, cumulative and exclusive. They're in quotes on that paragraph. Sometimes exclusive is called non-cumulative. Most zoning today is non-cumulative or exclusive. But historically, it was cumulative. I want you just to know this because the terms still come up. I don't want you to be embarrassed. The goal is to protect single-family homes. So in a single-family zoning district, you know, R1, R2, R3, only single-family homes. Then you go on to a multifamily zoning district that would allow multifamily homes. But if you also want to put a single-family house there, you can, because it's cumulative. Then you go on to commercial or industrial. You could still put whatever you want, realizing that industrial is the most offensive, and then single-family is the least offensive. Today, we don't want single-family homes in an industrial area. Even though it's their land and they don't cause a negative impact, we only have so much industrial land to go around. We don't want to waste it. So most of it's going to be, when you go get a zoning code for industrial, it's not going to allow a cumulative where a single-family house can be there. When historically, government didn't care because they're not trying to. If you want to do that, it's your choice. Everyone get that?
Yeah.
So most likely, you know, an apple is an apple, and an orange is an orange if you don't mix them up.
But
So
if
mo-
you can easy shift to get a commercial to a residential?
It's very hard to put commercial and residential,
Yeah.
unless it's limited neighborhood commercial. Maybe a 7-Eleven, it depends.
No, you didn't say put commercial in residential, you said get commercial to residential, right?
You mean you have a commercial zoning now and you want to go to residential?
Yes.
Change it? It depends, because this is what planners do. Planners are trying to maintain a tax base. They need so much commercial, so much industrial, so much multifamily. And what was happening before the Great Crash, everyone was doing that, converting from commercial to residential, because everyone wanted to be in a high-rise condo and flip residential. Finally, government started saying, if we keep doing this, we're not getting any commercial left. And that's where the job base comes from. So a good community planner looks at the need of industrial, commercial, office, and residential, and doesn't let the market, because you have to realize most developers are short-sighted. I want to do this deal now to make money today. If everyone did that, then we have no more commercial, no more jobs. So there's a balance to it. But yes, it's being done more and more common today. I want you to go to page 52 where it says buffer zones. You need to know this as a concept. The goal is to protect single-family homes. You see that on line 2. And you go down 2 more lines, you see the word heavy commercial or industrial. Well, the way to do that is to use multifamily in between the two as a buffer, transition. Single-family estate homes, smallest single family, then you go to townhomes, then you go to multifamily, walk-up, multifamily, mid-rise, then commercial and industrial. You have that transition, where you don't put the cement factory next to the school single family. That's some good planning stuff that you need to know. Look at the bottom of 52. NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Most people don't want anything in their backyard, Walmart or anything else. Lulu, locally unwanted land uses. Nobody wants to live next to a jail. Nobody wants to live next to a landfill. There's something called bananas. And I think it goes like this. Most homeowners are bananas. Ready? Build absolutely nothing, anywhere, never. Anywhere. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like what it is. Build absolutely nothing, never, anywhere. Whatever word, it works out. But that's what they are. And that's why I made a fortune as a land use attorney helping developers deal with bananas. Because people don't want things. Okay, non-conforming uses on page 53. You need to know this. The Bahia Hotel that we had was built 35 years ago. 15 stories. People in Fort Lauderdale started to complain about too much development on the beach. The city of Fort Lauderdale downzoned the beach from 15 to 12 where we were. Our building was already built at 15. We're in non-conforming use. We don't need to take our building down. We can still operate it. But if a hurricane was ever to knock it down, I can only go back to the 12. Zoning codes change. Height limits, page 53. Most zoning codes limit height, the lot size, going to page 54, setbacks, and building size. Does everyone know what FAR is? FAR, the bottom of page 50. Yeah, you know how it operates? Let's assume that's 1 acre, and let's assume I have an FAR of 1. An FAR of 1 means I can do the following. I can put 1 story on the entire lot. Or I can put 2 stories on half the lot. Everyone get that as a concept? Or I could put 4 stories on quarter of the lot, or 8 stories on an eighth of the lot. FAR of 1. Same concept if it's FAR of 2.
How much do you break that down?
Well, you can break it down as much as you want, subject to the code,
How high you can go?
how high you can go, and then FAA limitations. So for you to say, oh, I can go to the moon because the FAR allows, no, it doesn't, because there's other things. That's why the first assignment I had you do was read. You're going to get hit from multiple things. So if I'm you as a future real estate executive, hire a lawyer that does this every day. So at FAR 2, same concept. 2 stories across the whole thing, 4 across half. That's usually for commercial development. Okay? Page 55, the zoning process. Look where it says grounds for rezoning. First and second line. Zoning is allowed when it's in accordance with the comprehensive plan. Remember that Schindel case? Did you forget it already? The one that they made him take down? You got to make sure you build and get everything tied up with the comprehensive plan. Okay, do you see the word spot zoning? That's also called contract zoning. You know what that is? It's illegal. If there's 100 lots in a subdivision, and 99 of them have built a single-family house. And I know the mayor. We can't spot zone my last one for a 4-story walk-up multifamily. It's not consistent with the plan. It's also contract zoned if I say, Mayor, do that, and I'll do a walkway around the block. Now, there's ways to do it through a plan unit development, public hearing, but you need to know the concept of the comprehensive plan would never allow 99 single-family homes, but one 4-story multi-family right in the middle. It's not consistent with the comp plan or good compatibility. So we're not going to let you use the political process to spot zone. So every homeowner is always going to come back and say spot zoning, contract zoning.
When you spoke about the planned unit development, the, not class, the first class, is that always an option in every single city?
No, you have to check the code. I'm going tomorrow because I serve in the city of Fort Lauderdale task force. We used to do PUDs, now they call them IDs, innovative development. I'm on the task force trying to rewrite it. Some cities don't have it. Some call it, mixed-use development. Some call them different things. Most of them have it because it's a good thing to have, but each of them have different limitations on what you can do. But try to always find that. Remember page 56, the word variance? The last line, unnecessary hardship. Okay? You don't just change things because you know the mayor. You get a variance when you can't follow the code because your property is uniquely laid out that the code doesn't work. I gave the example before of the codes talk about setbacks like every lot is a rectangle. What happens if yours is a pie shape and it doesn't quite work? Well, you're not going to not develop because of the pie shape. You just have to get a variance made. Okay, page 57, special use permits definition. You see in quotes special exception and conditional use permit? You need to know those two words are interchangeable. Conditional use, special exception. This is a generalization. Anything worth developing that you want to make a lot of money on, probably is not as of right. You're probably going to go through the process. Conditional use, special exception is a public hearing. Okay, I love page 58. These are some of my favorite words in the world. 58, vested rights, estoppel, and developers agreement. And this is when the Byrd-Harris Act comes in.
So did I hear you say,
What are those?
did I hear you say, if we were gonna find the opportunities that really gonna a lot of money, is gonna be to go to this process, we're not gonna find any property that has no right.
Well, that's a generalization, it's probably not fair, but look.
I mean, I'm talking about in a place like this, South Florida, which is
Yeah, a place like this,
but in other parts.
anything that you want to do that's going to make a whole boatload of money is probably going to be pretty tall, pretty big, pretty intense. It's not just a duplex, right?
Right.
Once you start doing something that's really big, intense, and what have you, government wants to make sure you're jumping through some hurdles. That's why it's going to be a special exception, conditional use. It's not going to be, oh, you want to put a 52-story tower in downtown? Just go ahead. Now, let me make an exception to that. Pompano Beach. They've done the analysis. They want people to go do something. If you're willing to do anything in this little plan thing I sent you, they'll probably give you a building permit. But no disrespect to Pompano, but it's Pompano Beach. You want to know something? There's 3 things you need to know to be a real estate developer. Your land use analysis, your market study, and your pro forma. Just because the government hired RMA to do the form-based code to make it easy for developers from a land use point of view, find me a real good market guy or gal who's going to say, I'm willing to spend millions in Pompano. Find me a financial guy who can say, based on that market study, the pro forma is going to work. You need all 3 to line up. I'm very negative on Pompano. until someone, you know how Quicken Loans, the guy, Gilbert, billionaire, went to Detroit and said, hey, I'm just gonna buy it all up and I'm here, and that's a great catalyst. Until someone drops a really big, I've arrived in Pompano, and that's the catalyst to do a lot of stuff, you can call it an innovation district all you want. It's Pompano. That's not their history. Now yes, Delray Beach was once as challenged as this in areas, but it takes time. So even though RMA and CRA and the city of Pompano and Nova are all trying to do the big group hug together, I don't think I'm ready to write my $1 million check to be into this limited partnership yet. Even though, here's the zone, it has a right, I think.
We did talk about that email, right? That talks about the, that has some links to a website where you can actually see some of the future plans.
I mean, the one that I sent you from my former student, Max,
Yeah.
that had a couple of links. Yeah, I said that. He works for RMA, which is the consultant that's doing this.
Okay.
But why I want to meet in Pompano is I want us to say, just because you draw the pretty pictures, just because you make it easy to get to the land use entitlement process, doesn't mean it's worth it. Now, it's very simple. All things being equal, I'd rather spend 3 years getting my head beat up in Fort Lauderdale to finally get my approvals to build in Fort Lauderdale than have someone say, you can put the shovel in the ground tomorrow in Pompano. That may not be a fair statement, but my point of it is location, location, location.
But doesn't it also matter what you're putting there?
Yeah, it does. Now look, if all of a sudden,
Definitely the location is, it's nothing but.
if I want to put a, they're trying to get yuppies to do some innovation development where they don't need to be in big high-rise scrapers, but
That's
I
not
don't
gonna happen.
think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, there's an expression I like to use. You can put lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. Maybe it's not politically correct, but we'll look at this, we'll learn from it, and look, I think I said before, I'm a snob, but I'm also smart. On one level, I want to own the fanciest French restaurant in town.